Good morning, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Anoro. I'm the chairperson for the Department of Accounting, Data Science and Management Information Systems in the College of Business at Kapping State University. I'm honored to introduce Mr. Troy A. Lomé-Stovall to you this morning. Mr. Lomé-Stovall serves as the Chief Executive Officer, Executive Director of TEDCO, Maryland's economic engine for technology companies. TEDCO facilitates the creation of businesses and supports their growth in all regions of Maryland. He also serves as a strategic advisor for Hunter Lewis, LLC, an investment management advisory firm led by Cambridge associate co-founder Hunter Lewis. He founded and serves as a managing member of Lomé-Stovall LLC. Prior to TEDCO, Troy served as the Chief Operating Officer at the University of the District of Columbia. He has served as interim president for Zenith Education Group and as a principal with Butler Snow Advisory Services. He has also served as EVP/COO at Howard University and Senior VP/CFO at Jackson State University. Troy co-founded and served as the first president, CEO of Gulf South Capital, served as a senior engagement manager at McKinsey & Company, and held positions at Southwestern Bell Telephone, AT&T Bell Labs, and Rockwell International. Troy holds a BS Electrical Engineering degree cum laude from Southern Methodist University, an MOS Computer Science degree from Stanford University, and an MBA from Harvard University. Troy has served and is serving on several for-profit and non-profit boards, including Parkway Properties, Archipelago Learning, Epicor Software, Internet America, UDC Development Foundation, School Status, SMU Department of Electrical Engineering, and DC Chamber of Commerce. His top 5 Clifton strengths are belief, connectedness, strategic, achiever, and learner. He was selected for the Leadership Greater Washington Signature Program class of 2019, the DC Chamber Chairman's Award, and Baltimore Business Journal Leadership Trust in 2020. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Troy A. Lomé-Stovall. Thank you so much. Join me in welcoming him. Thank you.
Greetings. I couldn't be more excited to be here today to speak to all our friends at Coppin State. I want to thank you all for having me here today. Before we get started, again, my name is Troy Lomé-Stovall. Thank you for the intro. It's going to be like the Oscars here initially, kind of doing some thank yous. I had to always thank my Lord and my Savior for giving me the gifts to be here today. To my family, which includes people like my mother and my grandmother, neither of which went to college. And the grandmother, matter of fact, couldn't even read or write, but she was one of the most innovative persons I got a chance to meet. To my wife and my family and my 2 kids, Zora and Langston, there's just amazing individual, including our new child, Hamilton, who's our Aki-Poo dog that we just recently got. To my friends at Coppin State, and particularly President Jenkins, thank you for all you are doing. You're showing the definition of innovation, and my friend Ron Williams for having me here today. to the amazing team at TEDCO, who's helping put this on today, the marketing team of Tammy and Hal and Cassie. Thank you all for all you do. And also for each of you who are listening and being here today to talk about opportunities to outcomes, a blueprint for progressive economic mobility. And I recognize this audience today has a range of individuals from students and faculty and Coppin State supporters, ecosystem partners. And I'm hoping that my message today resonates with all of you, which gets to the two challenges that I have in preparing for today. One is this platform, which I'll talk about, and also the challenge of just the message itself. And with this platform, I love giving speeches. I love talking to folks. But this platform doesn't, I'm used to being able to look around an audience and see folks and see people nodding their heads and getting a couple of amens. And for those of you that grew up in the Black Baptist Church, is getting kind of the call and response going on. And so this is a challenge for me. So I think we, again, the creative team that I mentioned a few moments ago from TEDCO has some thoughts we're going to show to kind of break this up so you just don't have me talking at you the whole time. And I'll talk more about that in a second. On the message, again, this larger theme is opportunity to outcomes, a blueprint for progressive economic mobility. Now, my message was supposed to be around innovation matters, the role of HBCUs in the entrepreneurial future. And I was trying to think about how to tie those together. And I said, well, maybe I can talk about my own, I'm a big comic book fan. And so maybe I can talk about my own origin story and that pathway of opportunity outcomes and talk about how a young Black man growing up in Houston, Texas, and in the hood of Houston, Texas, in an area called Sunnyside South Park, grows up and becomes the first Black student body president of his high school, a predominantly white Catholic high school, and then goes on to places like at Southern Methodist University and Stanford and Harvard Business School, and works at places like AT&T, Bell Labs, and McKinsey, and starts his own firm and starts several family investment offices, and has worked at four different HBCUs and advised a number of other HBCUs, and actually advised a number of very large organizations across this country, and has been able to be a leader across the planet on a number of different stages, and been able to ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. But I said, they don't want to hear about all that. What's that got to do with opportunity outcomes? And then I thought about maybe we should talk about TEDCO. What we do at TEDCO and how we help entrepreneurs with their time and talent and treasure. And we do that by trying to find a different way to scale what we do here in Maryland, and to be able to stitch the things together that we do in Maryland, and to storytell that so we can get more resources, so we can keep more of these companies in Maryland that would be started by many of you out there. I said, they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear about that. And then I said, well, maybe they want to hear about opportunities and outcomes as it relates to themselves and how they can do on that journey. And that doesn't mean anything. So what I thought I'd do, and back to this platform, is talk a little bit about opportunities to outcomes and a blueprint. And for those of you, what I think the key word is that blueprint. And so this blueprint then is a design. It's a design of how you're going to move to this progressive economic mobility, how you're going to do that, and how do you move that in. And as I think about the words opportunity to outcome, that's a journey. And that journey is then defined by that blueprint. And as I think about opportunity to outcome, what I see in that transition is the word hope. And I'm an engineer, computer scientist by training. Yes, and I went and got my MBA, but I love the idea of etymology. I love the idea of the history of words. And if you look at the history of the word hope, it's got an Indo-European and a Hebrew-Greek. But when you put those historical meanings together, most people think of hope. They think of, it's something that might happen. It's something that might occur. But if you're moving from opportunity to outcome, hope is in the middle of that, because hope, if you really understand the history of the word hope, it's a confident expectation that a desirable change is likely to happen. That's the whole point, because opportunity is building something that's putting the blueprint together. And then you have this confident expectation that the outcome is going to occur. And then by following this blueprint, you can participate in this economic mobility. And by the way, on that last part of this, many people talk about this notion of the wealth gap. And I actually don't talk about the wealth gap, because I think the challenge with talking about the wealth gap is the reality of it is, I don't know if we will ever close it. And we don't close it because in order for us, Black folks and people of color, in order to gain wealth, we have to actually get wealth from another community, like white community. And in getting that wealth, we have to pay that wealth back. And so the gap can never get closed. And so I think a better way for us to think about this is to think about wealth inclusion and wealth expansion. That's how we have a progressive economic, and that's part of this blueprint. We have to actually start changing our language as we move from opportunity to outcome. Part of that journey, part of that confident expectation has to also be how we talk about this situation. And the situation includes both what we do and how we talk about what we do and what we're trying to get to. And getting to it involves us saying, we're going to be talking more about wealth expansion. In other words, how do we get more individuals involved in this wealth gain? And how do we include more that have not been included? And if we have to do both. And we have to do both as we move from opportunity to outcome and build this blueprint for progressive economic mobility. And so how do we go about doing that? I think we go about doing that by, and this is the second part of the message. And then this, I think the creative is, so I've been able in my time here at TEDCO, through this platform, to have what we call TEDCO Talks. And if you go to our TEDCO, TEDCOMD.com website and go to actually do TEDCO Insights, you'll see a number of our productions that we have. Again, the team has put up there. It's not just TEDCO Talks, but a lot of other information that we have about TEDCO, the insights. And so through TEDCO Talks, we've done well over, probably closing in on 40 of these already. And I've been blessed to talk to a number of key leaders across the state of Maryland. And I've been able to talk to, of the 4 HBCUs, 3 of their presidents. I talked to your president, Coppin State, President Jenkins, Morgan State's president, David Wilson, and then Bowie State president, Amita Bro. And we will get Dr. Anderson from UMS on. And this is a pivot, just as I'm talking about the HBCUs, and I'll explain the format we're going to do here in a second, is we have launched, again, talking about opportunities to outcome in a blueprint. So part of our blueprint for progressive economic mobility at TEDCO is we recognize that women entrepreneurs face significant challenges in who they are, how they get to be better entrepreneurs, and what they can be. And so when I first got, I've been here a little over 18 months, and Dr. Linda Singh, who used to lead the National Guard here, is a very respected businesswoman who's used to be at Accenture, was my predecessor at TEDCO. She was leading, along with Myron Norton, the former chair at TEDCO, chairwoman of the board, led the development of what we call a Lift to Lead. It's our women entrepreneur effort, where we bring a cohort of women together and we're able to help them build that community, build some skills, and build the ability to be better entrepreneurs. But as Linda and I were talking about it and thinking about the challenges that Black women entrepreneurs face, and Linda herself is a Black woman entrepreneur, it became clear we needed to leverage some of that, but also find a way to speak directly to the challenges that Black women entrepreneurs face. And we had a unique opportunity to partner with the 4 HBCUs, and they put together with those 4 HBCUs, we have now launched the Open Institute for Black Women Entrepreneur Excellence, which again, you can go to the website, and we just actually had a great press release around. We are partnering with Howard County to do a pilot from support from BG&E. So we see, so part of building this blueprint, part of moving Black women entrepreneurs from opportunity to outcome involves creating a community, creating a cohort, and finding a support network, which gets to my first point. So what I'm going to be able to do is kind of give you some of my highlights of some of the talks that I had with those 3 presidents. And as I think about the conversations that I had, they were all just very enlightening. So I think as you move from opportunity to outcome, one of the most important things to do or to have is someone who truly supports you. And yes, as part of that blueprint, as part of that journey, you need people like a TEDCO and others who will provide funding to you. And just a little sidebar on TEDCO, we don't just write checks. We actually provide other support to you as well. So whether you need talent, you need an incubator, you need 3D printing, you need a lawyer, you need just counsel, we provide all those things. We connect you, fully connect you into the ecosystem. But when that support comes from a family member who initially did not believe, it's powerful. And so Morgan State's president, David Wilson, good friend, talks about his journey that you'll hear here in a second. He's one of 10. They grew up in Alabama, and the year before he's about to go to school, Dad told him they couldn't afford it. And then David gets a scholarship, because I don't want to give away too much story. And as he's leaving, his dad gives him an amazing gift that David still has on his wall. So take a listen.
Said to my father, you know, Mrs. Coates told me to tell you this. If you can send me to school, man, 5 days a week, I can go to college. And my father said, he said, boy, let me tell you something. He said, college is for white people. And we didn't talk about it again. But then 5 years passed, and I started going to school 5 days a week in the 7th grade. I got really excited about the magic of education. I had grown up in this little shanty with no electricity, no plumbing, none of the so-called modern conveniences. And it would be so cold in there in the wintertime that my mom would have to figure out a way to keep us warm. And so she would take a look in Life magazines that the whites who owned the plantation really would have left at the house. Exactly. And we as children would plaster these things against the wall to keep the cold wind out. And that was really how I learned to read. And that was really how I began to understand that there was a really big world out there. And so by staying in that little shanty, I was able to go halfway around the world without leaving the confines of that little shanty. And so when I got up that morning 5 years later to go off to college, only applied to one school because in my view, it was the best college in America. And it was Tuskegee. And by miracle, they accepted me. And so I'm about to go out this door to get a ride to Tuskegee with the parents of one of my high school classmates who was also going to Tuskegee because we didn't have a car. And I would never forget this joy. So about 5 o'clock in the morning, as I was standing there in what we call the front room, about to go out the front door, I heard someone get up in the adjacent room, and it was my father. And he made his way into the front room. He had on these overalls, and he looked at me. Now, this is 5 o'clock in the morning, and he said, David, this time he called me by my name. He said, son, he said, I'm so proud of you.
Wow.
He said, you're about to do something that no one in this family has ever done. He said, you're about to go to college. He said, you're about to go to Tuskegee. And he said, you know, 5 years ago, you told me you wanted to do this. Do you recall what I said to you? And I said, sure, Daddy, I recall because it was so painful. And he said, let me tell you what I was really thinking. He said, what I was really thinking was how in the hell will I ever pay for you to go to college? But he said, I've been saving for this day. He said, I've been saving for the day when I would see my little David go out that front door to college. And so he reached in his overalls out something that he called a piece of money. And he asked me to hold out my hand, and I did. And he put this piece of money in my hand, and he put it in my hand so hard, I thought he was going to go through my hand to the floor. And then he took his hand and he put it over mine. And he said, now this is all that I have, and I'm investing it in you. And I looked in his face, and it's the first time, Troy, that I had ever seen my father cry.
Cry. You're making me cry, dude.
No, and I said to him, Daddy, I will.
You're making me cry.
And I went on the front porch, and as the sun was coming up, I opened my hand, and there in my hand was a crisp $5 bill. So to bring this to a close, yeah, I have 2 degrees from Harvard, 2 degrees from Tuskegee. I met world leaders all over the world.
Yeah.
But every single day, I have here in my office, on this little shelf behind me here, my life, to remind me of where I got this start and what my obligation is as a leader.
So sticking with President Wilson, and part of what he sees one of the other things he talks about is, when we're looking at investments, again, part of the blueprint for your progression has to be how you think about how you present yourself. And as we think about here at TechCo, we look at, the technology, is there a real market? Is there something there? Is there a way for you to create scale? Are you solving a problem? Is there a problem that the market is asking for? Have you thought through that? And how can we help you think through that? Does the technology make sense for that? We look at your plan and make sure you've thought about how are you going to go to market and how are you going to support that? We look at the economics and make sure the economics are going to work. That's all part of the blueprint. But the first question I ask whenever the investment team at TechCo brings something is something that I learned long ago when I first started doing venture capital. When I first started doing venture capital, they told me, they told me and these are the titans in Silicon Valley, what's called Sand Hill Road, where they're all located. This is, probably 20 plus years ago. They talked about how if they were playing baseball, they would never make the Hall of Fame because, if you think about a good baseball player, hits 30% of, a third of their hits. They don't get a third. They get less than that. But when they do hit, they strike out a lot. But when they hit home runs or they hit grand slams. And so they makes up for the lack of the singles and not getting the little hits. And so that's a huge part of what you have to do in this is to think about how do you get your home run? And we talk about this notion of being a unicorn, which is $1 billion company. But that's all great. But what I want you to hear from President Wilson is the first question I ask, all that's great stuff. The first question I ask is, are they coachable? Because what I learned from my Silicon Valley friends is that always invest in A quality people that have a B quality plan and never the reverse. Never B quality people with an A quality plan. Because every deal where we have been successful, I have been successful in the investments that I've done has been when we've invested in that person and they get that they've got the start, but they don't have the conclusion. And if you want someone else's money, you've got to do that. And the whole point of this, and President Wilson will talk about this, is humility. He talks about humility. And a line he says that I love is don't wear arrogance well. Arrogance doesn't wear well. And I would actually tell you for us people of color, there's a really, really fine line between confidence and arrogance. And you have to be confident. You have to have a sense of confidence about who and what you are, and what you're trying to accomplish, and that you have this idea. But you also can't be arrogant enough to believe that it's 100% of the answer. And so take a listen here to how President Wilson talks about humility.
How you grew up and your story of how you grew up, you're emulating that and trying to showcase that, and you feel this need to pay it forward. That $5 your dad gave you, you're trying to reinvest that into somebody else.
Well, that's true. And actually another thing that I've kind of kept with me, and trust me, as I said, I've gone around the world. I've had some quality time with, you name a world leader, living or deceased, I perhaps have had an opportunity to meet. Mm-hmm. But it's humility. Mm-hmm. I don't really wear arrogance well, not at all. And I don't really enjoy being in the company of people who present that as who they are. And so what I try and present here at Morgan to our students is that you can climb the highest ladder to the highest place, mm-hmm. but never, ever, ever forget the first rung.
And so, if you hadn't figured it out yet, part of the theme here for me was, HBCUs in an innovative future, right? But remember, that's a sub theme of the bigger theme of this blueprint. And so as we spoke to Dr. Bro from Bowie State, and I live just down the street, I joke that Bowie State is my hometown university. They are very much investing in entrepreneurship. They have built, and I happen to be blessed to be able to be at the ribbon cutting for this beautiful new building called the Entrepreneurial Living Learning Center. And it's this combination, and Dr. Bro will talk about this combination of entrepreneurship and living, and they've done some great things around student-run enterprises. They have a deal with Saxby to have a cafe run by students. And within this, you would call it a residence hall, innovation can happen at any moment, any time. And so when you're in your bed, you're in your room and something hits, you got a place to go to. So listen to Dr. Breaux as she talks about how Bowie State is really thinking more holistically and created a physical space in order to create entrepreneurship there with the Bulldog Nation.
Well, the strategic plan and the vision is entitled Racing to Excellence. Racing to excellence. So that connotes the type of energy they're speaking to. We look different today than we did a year and a half ago, dramatically different. Again, with the changes in how we deliver education, but also with what is happening just across our campus with the development of land, our new entrepreneurship living learning community. And thank you so much for coming out to help us cut the ribbon on that new building. It was great to have you there back in August when we cut the ribbon on this building, but it's more than a building. It bridges learning environments. It's the entrepreneurship living learning community. And it brings together three components in that one space. One is the Entrepreneurship Center that is made up of the Bowie BIC, the Bowie Business Innovation Center, a separate 501c3 that's part of the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in the area. They are actually partners with us and have a location on our campus in that facility. They're in that same location with our Entrepreneurship Academy. And our academy is working with students who are aspiring to become entrepreneurs, but that academy is also helping to create for every student here an entrepreneurial mindset before students graduate. And that's different than just creating a product or a business. It's about helping shape the thinking in the workplace and helping students manage their careers, to be innovative about their careers, to be creative, or if needed or desired, to create a product or to create a business. So those are two entities that are partnering in the Entrepreneurship Center within that new building. The second component is a residence hall. Now, who would have thought to put an entrepreneurship center together with a residence hall? Why would you do that? Because learning happens everywhere. And it happens at 2 o'clock in the morning when you get that exciting idea. If you were a student living in that facility, you would get up and say, oh my gosh, this is the latest and greatest, whatever you want to create. We want to inspire students wherever they are to really reach high with their ideas and see their ideas from creation and ideation to completion and see those ideas implemented.
And then we want to invest in them, and we want to invest in them, and we want to invest in them.
Oh, and you are a wonderful partner in this entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we have a residence hall, 557 new beds for our growth. Our enrollment is up this year. Enrollment is up, and we needed that space to have more students who want to live on the campus live here. The third component is a commercial space, and that's still being completed as we speak.
The other thing, so you heard talk about that innovation knows no clock, and I couldn't agree more. Innovation does not have a clock. Innovation can happen at any moment, at any time. And again, as we move from opportunity to outcome, there isn't, this isn't some linear progression that takes place. It's not linear. What it is, it goes in fits and starts. And sometimes it goes really fast, sometimes it goes really slow. And I think, many times, and I've had this conversation with a number of entrepreneurs that have come through TechCo, when we're giving them feedback and we tell them no, they take that no as if it's no, because I'm a Black person, I'm a Black woman, Black man. And what they're not seeing is what we're really trying to do is help them progress. Because the whole point of TechCo putting money in is to get it. So when we put $1 in, our longer term goal is that somebody else is going to put $1,000 in, or $1 million in, or $1 billion in. That's frankly how we make our money. And so the other thing that's happening in higher ed, again, I've been blessed to be able to work at 4 HBCUs. I've advised, I said, another 20 of them. I've advised another 15 or so fairly major institutions, predominantly white institutions here in the country. So I've got a pretty good read. And, there's a whole challenge happening in higher ed around the progression of this traditional model. Again, how that opportunity, because you come to a university looking for opportunity to eventually get a job. The outcome is a job. And so the challenge, though, is that many times, the traditional getting a degree isn't the end game for everybody. It's just not. And so, President Jenkins there at Coppin talks about that here. He talks about it, and Dr. Breaux does too. I think we probably have a little bit of both. Both of them talk about this notion that we've got to change, and we got to be more where the students are and not force them into a model. And so I bring that up in why does it relate to entrepreneurship? Because that's the same thing needs to happen with you. Just like these universities need to become more innovative and more nimble, you with your career progression as you move from opportunity to outcome, you also have to think about this difference. So you're going to hear one of them talk about badging and reskilling, and you're going to hear President Jenkins talk about this notion of how does he change the value proposition for his students.
And today we offer over 20 programs, 23 to be exact, undergraduate programs. We offer 2 doctoral programs, 19 master's programs, and a growing number of certificate programs. Today we have 14 certificate programs, but that number is growing because the workplaces are changing, evolving, transforming. And we're no longer just looking at 4-year degrees, but industry and business leaders are looking for us to help with the retooling, reskilling of the workforce. And that comes with badges and certificates, and those individuals who just need to come back in, get certified for a certain area and get back out into the workplace. And with regard to the entrepreneurial initiatives, you're absolutely right with how I approach learning here at Bowie State University in our academic programs. Again, I believe every day affords experiences for our students to avail themselves of.
What I've been able to glean throughout my career is really the understanding of how to position an institution, make it more student focused, more student centered, and how to build partnerships and relationships and increase the overall value proposition of those institutions. Again, never leaving or losing focus of being student-centered. That is why we're here.
You said student-centered. I mean, that's a word, those are words that have been used a lot, particularly in this last year with COVID. Tell me what that means for you, because I've had this question, because I've had some of your other colleagues from other HBCU and other universities in the system.
Sure.
So tell me what that means for you and for Coppin.
So great question, Troy. Let me tell you what it does not mean. It does not mean that the institution operates for the faculty, the staff, or the president, okay? Because those individuals are important, but they are not the core nucleus of what makes the institution what it is and what it is going to become. Everything we do, policies, procedures, customer service, focuses on the student. Quality education, wraparound services, focus on the student. Everything we do, as I challenge my team, I always hit the pause button and I say, wait a minute, how is that going to impact our students? Are we offering enough academic courses so that on their candidate plan of study, they can reduce the time to earning their degree and getting out of here? It's not about if faculty don't want to work over the summer, if faculty don't want to work Saturday and, Friday nights and all of these things. It's creating that environment where the student drives what we do, how we think, our core values, and who we are, because they are the greatest marketing tool we have. They are our product. And so when they hit the workforce and people say, wow, look how intelligent this person is. Look how innovative they are. Their critical thinking skills, their self-efficacy. If that's the type of student that Coppin is educating, then I want to know more about Coppin and I want more of those students. So that's really the crux of what I mean when I say being student-centered. I know many institutions use that as a buzzword, and I'm telling you, Troy, I've been at institutions where they use that like they do diversity, and it is just simply in the marketing materials.
Yeah, we're going to come back and deal with diversity in a minute, but I couldn't agree more.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But that is what it means to me, is really asking your students and knowing, what does success look like for them? because not every student is coming to earn a degree. Some are coming for certificates. Some are coming for a continuing education, lifelong learning. So being in tune with what your students need, to me, is a part of being student-centered.
And so the other thing, what I love about President Jenkins and the way he thinks about this is that many schools have entrepreneurship as a degree program in, say, in the engineering or in the business school. And what they're doing at Coppin, and actually they're doing also at Bowie and in Morgan as well, is they see entrepreneurship as part of the journey, as part of the blueprint for any student. Because you can be, as President Jenkins talked about, you could be any other degree program and eventually want to go into business. You want to be an entrepreneur. You want to start something for yourself. And so he talks about here this notion of how do we create critical thinking for our students, and how do we give them those blueprints so they can progress and move to an outcome that has an entrepreneurial future to it.
Well, listen, thank you. And first and foremost, our partnership with you and TEDCO, to me, is very important. Because you all are at the forefront of change, diversity, inclusion, equality, technology, all those things. And those are important factors to Coppin State. So in our new College of Business that we have broken ground on, one of the cornerstones to that will be our Center for Strategic Entrepreneurship, where in that actual facility, we are going to have makerspace. We are going to have the opportunity for individuals to tap our faculty experts and our students for experiential learning opportunities to help small businesses grow and help startups put together their business plans so that they can start off on the right foot and be more successful. We are also going to be looking at how do we use our resources around some of our other academic areas as well, but we're going to be expanding our entrepreneurship university curriculum beyond our College of Business. And so we will have that across campus, regardless of a student's major. They will be taking a minimum number of hours of entrepreneurship courses. For example, the young woman or young man who is majoring in art may one day want to open up their own art gallery. There's a student here at Coppin that will go on to law school, may want to open up her or his own law firm. Our nursing students may want to open up a nursing practice, or our psychology students may want to open up a psychology practice. Entrepreneurship is critical to enhancing the critical thinking of our students and their holistic development. So we are committed to this, and I'm excited by what we're doing and what we're going to be partnering with TEDCO to do in the future.
As I talked to President Jenkins towards the end of our journey there, I want him to talk about what he would say to 17-year-old Anthony. And I really do want to close on this because I really think it's important, and it's very much aligns to some of the conversations I've had with my own kids. My kids are teenagers, older teenagers. And he talks about the notion of false friends. He talks about the notion of appreciating the journey. As you move from opportunity to outcome, appreciate the journey, because like I said, it won't be linear, but appreciate it. And don't get so frustrated with the day, because things might not go great today, but they're going to be better tomorrow. There is a tomorrow. And he talks about faith, and he talks about hanging with bro friends. So I'll let you listen to this and I'm going to come back.
I would tell that young 16-year-old Anthony to be cognizant of false friends.
Preach on that one.
And to understand that everybody is not cheering for you, and that you have to run your race and not someone else's. That's one thing I would tell him. And then I would tell him to have a greater appreciation for the journey, right?
Amen on that one too.
Because it is that journey that is going to help you evolve and to be tested and to be ready so that your ambitions don't outweigh your talent.
Love it.
You know, there are so many things that I will tell young Anthony, but I will say this, Troy, I would tell him, which he did, never lose faith, right?
That's the key.
Always stay faithful and know that if you put your hand in his, he will deliver you.
Oh, preach. You know, your first one about false friends remind me of something I tell my kids. I tell them, you know, you can only rise to the highest level of the lowest level of the friends you keep.
Ah, I like that. Man, I love that.
Yeah, right. Because you will become what you hang out with. If you hang out with millionaires, you'll become a millionaire. If you hang out with pimps, you become a pimp. That's simple.
Now you sound like one of my favorite rap groups because I'm old school hip hop. EPMD.
Yes.
And so Eric and Paris once said, if you hang with 9 broke friends, you'll be the 10th one. Same concept, right?
Yep.
If you hang with 9 hard heads, good luck. If you hang with 9 successful people who are moving in that direction in which you want to go, then you can see prosperity and all those other things touch you.
And so, you know, he talks about, you know, hanging with 9 broke friends. And I had, you heard me say, I had the analogy with my kids. And, you know, if you will attain the highest level of the lowest level of the friends you hang around. That's just the truth. And so if you really want to move from opportunity to outcome, if you really want to have a blueprint for progressive, if you really want to be part of an innovative future, you need to surround yourself with those people who can push you, who can guide you, who can give you tough love, who won't always give you what you want to hear, but will give you what you need to hear in a way that is in a coaching way that builds you up. And so I would ask you, as you all think about and have a chance to think about your own blueprint and think about your own journey, think about who you have around you. Think about how do you have a family member or a friend or a colleague or a professor or whomever who can really be that for you. And I've had those type of people in my life. It's an amazing set of individuals who have done that for me and have put me in a position where I have been able to move from opportunity from that kid who grew up in South Park, Sunnyside, South Park, the hood, single mom, sister who was had sickle cell, was always in the hospital, literally always in the hospital. My sister and I were born a year and a day apart. And she ended up being 2 grades behind me because she had to keep in the hospital for almost a year, who grew up finding out when he was 18 years old that who I thought was my father wasn't my biological father and someone else. That's why I have a hyphenated name, who ended up going into Oklahoma and doing a great job and being the youngest person to ever get what's called a Key Award for what used to be Southwestern Bell. And they shipped me to Eastern Oklahoma to an area that was had a skinhead camp in it, had a flat out racist on my team, they almost got shot at multiple days, but ended up being turning that crew around to one of the highest performing crews in the country. Someone who understood that opportunities are always given to them, but it's not always going to be a linear path. And so what you've got to do is always have a blueprint. And by the way, that blueprint might change over time. And so don't be afraid to change it as you need to, but don't veer from the end goal. And the end goal is, as I said before, is how do you create for yourselves, for your family, for your community? How do you include more folks in wealth? And how do you expand those who have access to wealth? So I always want to thank you for your time and your attention today. Sorry for this. I really do wish we could be there. I look forward to the time we can be together and hug each other and spend time together. But I would ask you all to think through who you're going to have on your journey as you move. And remember, hope isn't some wishful thinking. Hope is a confident expectation that something is going to happen and that you're going to move from opportunity to outcome. Thank you and God bless.